And it's a great pleasure. It's good to see you again, Cornelius, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, thank you, Hal.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce you and get into the program. And in the audience, we have two guests here on this particular program. And on my far left is Paul Kerson. He's an attorney and he's a partner with Leavitt, Kerson, and Duane here in New York City. And he is an attorney, and we're going to be talking a good deal about the law and the situation as far as the judicial system within the United States on this program. And Paul, welcome very, very much
to
the conversation, truly. And on my immediate left is an old friend of conversation, that's Cornelius Ricks. And he's here, he's a community activist, he's a publicist, and he's been, I think he's going to be talking some about a particular case that he's been involved with and talking about the judicial system within the United States. But Cornelius, thanks again for coming.
Thank you, Hal. It's a pleasure being here. Always a pleasure.
Always good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
So share with us, kick it off if you could, Cornelius. You were talking, and as I understand, you've got a case pending within the judicial process and so forth. But I wonder, maybe you could, before we do, just a little bit of your background.
Well, one of the things that I've worked on and worked with, I used to work with TV1. I used to produce, work with G. Garvey, as well as like I See Black People Living, Laughing Together with TV1. I also did Live and Launch, Pat LaBelle. I produced Melvin Moore, Frida Payne, George Benson. I owned the co-line with Melvin Moore called After Five, an evening hour collection I owned with Melvin Moore.
That was all television?
It was basically, well, television was actually with TV1, with G. Garvey and other, and Pat LaBelle, Living Launch, Patty Bell with TV1. I See Black People with Kathy Hughes.
Right, I see.
But I also worked at the American Cancer Society, dealing with bringing everybody Fonte to the American Cancer Society, dealing with colon cancer.
Are you doing this in terms of like a publicist or
public
relations with these entities?
Relations with I was hired by them to do work for them. It's like dealing with the program itself. And basically by doing these different programs, just recently, if you remember last year, we did a program called Why Does White Folks Write Black Books? We did it with a large audience discussion on that with Dr. Lincoln Jeffries, Camille Yarnborough, Dr. Jack Feldman, as well as you and Josh.
I moderated
You moderated that program.
That's right, I remember. That was really a good night.
That's right. And we just did our last program. We did at UMan Bookstore.
Okay.
Why Does White Folks Write Black Books? A rerun of that program itself. And UMan Bookstore became a very great success as well. Also, I just finished up doing another program called Behind the Bench.
Exactly, we want to talk about that, yeah.
And basically by doing that particular program, it became such a great success. In fact, Attorney Paul Kerson, he was one of the lawyers on the panel discussion with the Attorney General. The
current Attorney General of New York?
No, the Harlem branch.
Okay.
Guy Mitchell.
Okay.
Guy Mitchell from
And didn't you have my friend Jay Dankberg?
Jay Dankberg, the housing judge. You know, as a retired housing judge, who was there as well. And one of the reasons why I created that particular project or that particular program was because I felt as though a lot of times we meet judges in the front of the bench instead of the back of the bench.
You're right.
So I thought it was important that we have a tendency to be able to meet judges in the back of the bench to see the human side of judges. And basically why, and having these discussions with judges, why do they make the decisions they make within the black community?
Very interesting indeed and timely.
Yeah. So by doing this, I thought it was important to bring these judges there. We did it at the New York Public Library for the 100th anniversary in Harlem, right across the street from Marcus Garvey Park. So by doing this particular project, it became such a great success, and I think I mentioned it to you. You were overwhelmed with it. You really thought it was a great program. You thought it was something we can talk about.
The thing about judges.
About the judges.
Yeah, it does. It seems that way.
I think that a lot of times we, as especially as black people, sometimes it disturbs people by mentioning certain issues. But I think what I find disturbing is that a lot of times we don't have a chance to really sit down with lawyers, or personally sit down with a lawyer and discuss issues about the judiciary system. So by doing that, I thought it was important to bring these lawyers and judges together and discuss issues and bring an audience, which you did it as a TV show as well, bring an audience in, where the audience would be able to sit down and actually ask these different questions. If they have housing court issues, civil court issues, family court issues, even criminal court issues, and ask these judges why do they make decisions they make in the black community, as well as dealing with certain, not really going into detail with their case, but discussing issues of decision that was made in a case or decision of a pending case, but not too much in depth. Because if you give too much information and being on TV and radio, somebody should be on the next thing smoking going upstate. So the main thing is the main thing is
everything can get very complicated.
Get very complicated. You got to be very careful what you say.
The law is very complicated, and the way it's worked out is very hard for the citizen to understand. I think.
Right, exactly. That's right. And Teresa Friedman was the State Assembly woman. She was the narrator or the host of the program itself. And another reason why I thought it was important for Mr. Kerson to be here was because he was one of the attorneys that handled the case with Nick, and he did a wonderful job. And one of the things that.
That's nice of you to say.
Yeah, that's nice to say. Pass on the kudos.
Yeah, but the main thing is that, and by doing that, I respect him so much because one of the reasons I asked him was that why did he take my case, or why did you even deal with my case? And he said the reason why he retired from the bench, as he was a retired judge as well.
Oh, you were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this is a very personal thing, which I don't mind telling you because I think people could learn from this. I've been a lawyer for a very long time, 34 years already. It was a long time.
You do something, you don't look younger. Wow. You look so young, you shouldn't have enough time to fill out all that on the
Well, the first two, think you, but
I don't know what your diet is and so forth. How do you manage?
My diet is I meet people like Cornelius every day. I try to lend them a hand, and then by the time you know it, 34 years went.
All right, very good.
But I want to say this real quick, though. What I love so much about him, what he said to me was that it's very, very touching. So I said to Paul, why were you interested in my case? And Paul said to me, you had a very interesting case, and what I'm trying to do is change the judiciary system. So basically, by doing that, he says, one of the reasons why I stepped off the bench was because I thought it was important. I can do more off the bench than on the bench.
You should maybe have a program here to talk about these issues.
It's a very personal thing, what happened to me. The first 2 years I was a prosecutor. I was an assistant attorney general, and I found I didn't like being a prosecutor. So I opened my own office with some partners, and I got on the panels where what you would call a part-time public defender, which every state has that because the state has an obligation to provide a defense for people who don't have money. Well, in New York, the Legal Aid Society has the main contract, but people tend to be arrested together, and so Legal Aid Society will have the first defendant or one of the Legal Aid clones, and now several Legal Aid clones, similar to Legal Aid, and then the second defendant or the third defendant or the fourth defendant will have an attorney off a list. So I got myself on that list. And I was on that list for...
the attorneys go out volunteer to be on that list?
Volunteer, yeah. And the city pays a minimal sum.
Okay.
You do it for various reasons. You do it because you believe in the Sixth Amendment. You believe people have a right to an attorney. You want to get the experience. You want to get exposure. So I did it. I was a prosecutor 2 years, and then I was a part-time public defender for 19 years.
So that's going on the other side of the equation in a certain sense. Huh?
This is what happened to me that really affected my soul. During the 19 years, 3 of my clients died in jail. They died. One was hit by a correctional officer. He had a huge whack on his head, which he later died from those injuries. Second one died of untreated AIDS in a prison. A third one was killed by another prisoner in a fight over a toilet. And so then it finally came to me after these experiences that this is not right. I mean, these guys, they got the death penalty for, the first fellow, he was a small-time drug dealer. The second fellow was in a fist fight with his landlord where knives were used later, but he was convicted of assault. He got 4 years in prison. He was supposed to get capital punishment for assault. And
but wait a minute, he didn't have a capital. He didn't have a capital sentence.
No, he just died of AIDS. He got AIDS in prison.
And he didn't get adequate medical attention. Right. Okay.
And the third fellow, he wasn't even convicted of anything yet. He was waiting on Rikers Island for his court date when he got killed.
Like Abu Ghraib or something. Yeah.
Abu Ghraib is nothing compared to the New York State Department of Correctional Services.
Really? Is
That's
that bad?
right.
Is it? Yeah, really.
Listen, this goes on all the time.
Okay.
Those words. Listen, I'm only one guy. There are thousands of lawyers in New York who have experienced a client has died or been seriously hurt in the prison system. So anyway, then I decided, well, what am I going to do about this? I'm just one fellow. So I thought, well, maybe I can gather together some of the prisoners who've been really seriously hurt and bring one big case with a number of seriously hurt prisoners and see if I can try to affect some change. And
good for you.
Well, Cornelius was one of my clients in that case. 37 prisoners we put together, my partners and I.
How did you draw up to 37?
Well, I know from doing all these years, I knew people in prison.
Right.
And also, I went to the clerk's office in the federal court. I approached some federal judges I know, and I said, I'd like to do this. Federal judges said, well, you can go in the clerk's office and see who's pro se. Some prisoners who brought their own cases and see if they want your help, which is exactly what happened. And then those prisoners referred other prisoners, and that's how I got together the group of 37.
Good.
So anyway, we lost. And then we brought an appeal.
You brought a case in where? What court? And where,
United States District Court in Manhattan.
And what was the issue?
The issue was that the civil rights of the prisoners were violated because they had unsafe prison conditions.
Okay. Well, good for you. Good for you. They are awful.
Then we took an appeal, and it's in the law books. It's called Webb versus Gould. That's the case. Cornelius was part of it. We lost. But one of those cases was split out. A fellow named Don Britt. And I took that case to a jury trial, got a $7 million verdict.
Okay, good for
against the Corrections Commission, which was later reduced to $325,000. But
that's a big reduction.
Yeah.
But you made the point.
We made the point.
And there should be people protecting. You have Fortune Society, things like that. Are there people in the society trying to take care and concern for the people who are unjustly, very often, being put and incarcerated in this growing prison industrial complex? Isn't it a big issue? It seems to me.
To me, it's a terrible thing. The people are put into the prison system. They're supposed to be rehabilitated, and they're not. They're left to terrible amounts of idle time, waste of human resources. People with idle time tend to get into beefs with each other. Correction officers don't police it adequately. It's just a terrible, terrible situation that, in my mind, well, later on, when I had the chance to become a judge, I did, and I thought, well, I'll follow that career path. Couldn't do it.
Well, could not
do it. My soul was affected. I couldn't put people in. I mean, I did put people in jail because the statute said I had to, but it kept me up at night. I mean, I did that in 1991, and I had to resign. Could not find it in my soul to put people in prison, knowing what I know about the prisons.
That's a very interesting comment on your conscience. I remember being raised on Darrow for the Defense, the book, and Clarence Darrow and that kind of thing. It seems to me you're in that good company. Or
I like to think so. Most people don't agree with me. I mean, the system goes on.
Yes, it does.
But and I've talked to judges I know, because when you get this old, you know judges, they're my contemporaries, and I'll say, well, how can you do it? And they'll say, well, no, that's not my problem. That's corrections problem. But, that's not a good enough answer for me.
I wonder, I've got Sotomayor going on now for the United States Supreme Court, and they're saying she has too much empathy for things, or that she has a particular view, and they're supposed to be just hewing to the absolute letter of the law. And that
she was a judge for a long time. She put plenty of people in jail. I could not do that.
You couldn't do it,
no.
You see, so maybe you should.
I mean, I did, but I had to stop.
So you're where you belong now, in a sense, on the side of the people that, in a certain sense, you're on the side of the people.
Exactly.
It was Perry Mason for the people.
I'm very comfortable with that. I'm very happy defending people. But putting people in jail is not for me.
And he never did lose. Except once.
He was a fictional character.
Yes, I know.
In reality, it doesn't work that way.
My daddy was a lawyer, and he used to say it was pretty good depiction. That was reading the books. They didn't have television. Anyway, good for you and all that work, and you were one of those who was in that, and that's your case that you're talking about when he says.
Well, basically what's going on is basically how I ended up in that situation was that it was a 1991 case, and what happened was that I owned a store down on 9th Street, and the state of New York, I met a girl in a bar, whatever, came back to my store, we started hanging out. 4 days later, I get charges brought against me, said that I assaulted her or whatever. And basically, by dealing with this particular issue, the judge, as well as the district attorney's office, as well as the lawyer that held the case, I think his name was Fowley, Andrew Fowley. Andrew Fowley red-roaded me, cost me a fortune, red-roaded me through the system, they pushed it on me to 5 years probation. When they gave me the 5 years probation, which something I didn't want to cop out to, I knew that I was going down if I didn't, because basically what they do, they tell you, if you don't take this, you're going to give you 35 years if you take us to trial. You get a flea bargain. So basically what happened was, by doing that, I ended up working with a woman on Park Avenue. She owed me money, and she had got an order of protection. I started calling her to collect my money from her, and they got me for criminal contempt. I had 1 month to do on probation. So by dealing with this 1 month of probation, they called me back to court, resentenced me on that 1991 case, which was a 2002 case that was a criminal contempt case. So basically by doing that, I started fighting the 1991 case. I was fighting the 1991 case in court, in jail, whatever. In the meantime, I'm going to court. I got Reverend Butts, I got Reverend Flake, I have different political people that's in my corner dealing with the case itself, and Paul knew about that as well.
Calvin Butts is a big...
Well, probably because Butts is a Butts. The bottom line is that basically by dealing with these particular issues, he wrote letters and things like that. By fighting these issues, they took a truck, and ran into the side of the correction bus, messed up my neck and my back. I was walking around with a neck brace and back brace on. Okay? Walking around with a neck brace and back brace on. In the meantime, they sent me upstate to downstate. When I get to downstate, they asked me, Negro or nigga, why do you have a pass for that neck brace? And I said, the pass is in the cell. They turned around, snatched the neck brace off, beat me up, pound me out, sent me to the infirmary, saying that I had violent conduct and violent behavior. Then I was in the next thing smoking the Sing Sing. Then after they beat me up in Sing Sing, I'm in the chapel in Sing Sing, and I wrote the judge up on conditionary conduct. I wrote the lawyer up on conditionary conduct. I'm at the chapel in Sing Sing, going down to the bathroom. There's 4 correctional officers. One his name was Fisher, Officer Fisher. But they got me. The one that beat me up in downstate, his name was I forgot his name. It starts with an M. But Fisher, this little one Fisher, beat me up with 3 other correctional officers and dragged me in the hallway, back in the hallway, into downstairs in the hallway under the chapel when everybody else upstairs in the chapel. Dragged me back there, beat me up, kicked me, pulled my neck brace off, and said, "This came from the judge."
This is like some sort of a horror story. Well, this came a lot of details.
This came from the judge. Yeah. Then after they beat me up there, they beat me up 2 or 3 times, telling me to keep my mouth shut. That's when I got in touch with Mr. Kerson. Then I was on the next thing smoking, going to Auburn.
Next thing,
smoking, going to, they sent me up to Auburn.
What is smoking?
Smoking means on a bus, on a car, on a plane. They send me up to Auburn.
Smoking is like traveling?
I get up there, they lock me down for like 24 hours a day.
Lock you down? What is
lock me in a cell for like 24 hours. I never did anything to intimidate people other than fight my issues on my case. By doing this, I was beaten up again. And one of the officers said to me, he says to me, "Do you know who you're dealing with?" I says, "No." He goes, "Well, the judge that you wrote up, or the judge that you're dealing with, is Colin Powell's first cousin." So it blew my mind to the point where I didn't concern myself with that. But what happened, they did that. After they beat me up in Auburn, they sent me up to Governor. Governors is another minimum security prison.
Oh, it's another prison. I'm not that familiar.
Well, they sent me to all these different prisons, and by doing that, they terrorized me. So by being up in Governor's like almost 500 miles or 400 miles from the city of New York. So what they used to do is take me out of there at night, drag me down to Rikers Island, keep me down to Rikers Island for 3 or 4 days to go back and forth playing with a judge, and say the judge is not pleased with you. So then, doing that, they would take a van, and going up to Governor at night is blue black, and you can't even see your hands in front of you. So they used to have, you ever see the movie called Cool Hand Luke?
Of course.
Okay, well, in this prison, where they would have lights like this on, and you would have a white officer standing at the gate with these reflective sunglasses on at night to intimidate me, to make sure that I'm keeping my mouth shut. They took me through this turmoil.
You mean okay, go on.
They took me through this turmoil. They terrorized me. They beat me up. And by doing that, we went through the federal court, state court, and everything else to deal with addressing these issues. And it seems like Guantanamo Bay is not just in Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is here in America. Guantanamo Bay is in your backyard. Okay. These are things that they do not talk about. These are things that has to be discussed. We sent a letter to David, to Governor David Patterson.
Guantanamo Bay is nothing
compared
to New York.
To New York City Public Corrections.
What did he say?
Guantanamo Bay is nothing compared to what happens in the New York State Department of
and they get away, and the bottom line is that they get away with it. The bottom line is that it's so vicious to the point where these people are murderers. These people should be put in jail. For what they did to me, it's a disgrace to America. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the program called Behind the Bench. I am not going to let these people terrorize me and taunt me and beat me the way they beat me and get away with it. I don't know what they were thinking when they did it. I mean, I've seen these other prisoners or other people come out of prisons. They don't say anything about what's going on because they're scared to death, or they don't have the power and the network to deal with addressing their issues. I am addressing my issues. I am going to make sure that everybody that dealt with terrorizing me, beating me like I'm a runaway slave. I am not your slave. I'm a grown man. You don't beat me like you own me. Who do you think you ought to beat me the way they beat me up there? And then when they beat me, they're telling me to keep my mouth shut. You know, and it's annoying, and it really bothers me because from the case itself, I've never been a violent person in my entire life.
You've never been what?
A violent person.
Violent
person in my life. I'd never been in trouble. My mother and father did not raise a convict. My mother and father did not raise a fool. My mother had a doctorate.
Have you ever been in a fist fight?
Sure, I think we've all been in fist fights one time in our life. Young boys always get in fist fights. Right? But the bottom line is that, I mean, it happens. It all depends on where you live. It all depends on you. It's not necessarily where you live at, but it happens. But the point is that what I'm saying to you is that whatever it is, I didn't pick a fist fight. Okay? I didn't pick a fist fight.
That's a heck of a story, isn't it? Something else you're familiar with.
He's fully aware of the story.
Suppose I were to go.
I called him every. Let me say something to you. I called Mr. Kerson when I was being beat up at least once a week. Once a week, and every time they turn around, I even got the FBI involved. They never did anything to help me. NAACP never did anything to help me. Reverend Sharpton, no one came to my rescue to actually deal with addressing these issues. When I got out, remember when Reverend Buxton was writing letters to the parole board to release me, they never released me. They kept hitting me because they knew that I was on pseudo when I got out of jail. When Paul Kerson asked for a meeting with Reverend Butts tapped ass, wouldn't even speak to him. Wouldn't even talk to him. All my furniture in my apartment, when I was fighting this case, all my furniture in my apartment, and my clothing, everything in my house disappeared.
Okay, now let me...
Stonewall. In his case that I combined with the 36 others, we asked for this, what we call discovery. We wanted to know how much stitching material do they buy for all of the beatings that people receive? Denied. They wouldn't let us know that.
They beat you at will.
We wanted to know the number of beatings, how many prisoners were beaten.
Is it reported?
How many? No, reported.
They erased it. You get grievances, but the grievance that they beat you up to write a grievance.
We sent a discovery notice. We wanted to know all of the beatings. We wanted to know all of the number of medical personnel, how many hospital beds, all of this stuff we wanted to know. Denied. Not allowed to find out.
Not denied by the court.
That's right.
Yeah. And you were doing this for the state of New York? You were trying to get figures and everything like that. It's in discovery.
I was doing it.
Case that you were bringing?
I was doing this for the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
Why I'm the only one who figured this out, I don't know.
Exactly.
Me and my partners.
I was going to ask you, why haven't others, or how have others, and how many people are there to defend that, or defend your situation, or the situation of fellows who
what you have to understand is this. What this is basically dealing with what they call a quiet hurricane. And basically, sometimes you don't want to, something, if you don't know, don't tell me. And basically, a lot of times they know, but they don't want to be associated with it. It's like dealing with this conversation we're having with you now. By discussing this, and dealing with these issues, I had officers standing outside my house saying, I did it. I've been threatened.
You mean off the record, they're telling you that as you talk?
No, they're telling me that.
I did what?
The crime was committed. I did it. That's what they're trying to do because they know that I'm fighting it. As far as they dealing with what they did to me. And they be standing outside my house. I'm saying to myself, like, I even told the security guard in my building to watch out for me when I come home because these people are dangerous. These people are not anybody.
These are representatives
of the state of New York. These are the state of New York. These people are very, very dangerous. And it's not just them being dangerous. It's the lawyers that are dangerous. It's the judges that are dangerous. That's why I created Behind the Bench because I felt as though if you were at the program we had called Behind the Bench that I produced, if you were there, if you've seen the cases that came forth about abuse through the judiciary system of judges and lawyers and how they railroaded people that were sitting up in the audience, which I really wish that we could have had footage on that for you. It would have shocked you. One woman was a lawyer and was actually threatened by a judge. Okay, and she got in this thing with Paul. Paul was trying to explain to her that. there's certain steps you have to go through. The judiciary conduct. When you write a judge up on judiciary conduct or a lawyer up on judiciary conduct, they half the time they don't even want to. It all depends on the judge or the lawyer. They do not want to touch that. They brush it under the rug because we feel as though they're right.
Yeah, well, it's protecting the blue line, you know, that kind of thing against that. And what do the people who are on that side and are addressed with this question, their scenario of what you've been saying, they were beating you and so forth, I presume if they answered it at all or dealt with it at all, they would say you were being incorrigible or uncorrigible and that you were being a hard case and you had to be...
But you still...
You know, the movies...
Excuse me.
That's what they'll be saying.
What would I look like? Let me ask you a simple question. The whole time I was there, I was wearing a neck brace and back brace. What am I, if I'm wearing a neck brace and back brace, how am I valid? What am I going to do? My neck, today, my neck, my back still bothers me. Okay, when they ran the truck into the bus,
yeah, what was that about? You went that fast. What was that about?
I don't know what it was about. I know that
it was an accident or something.
There was no accident. They ran that truck into that bus on purpose.
Now you're saying the system.
And the people, the reason, with the bottom line is that when they ran the data out that was going to court, when they ran, that was the beginning of it. When they ran that truck into that bus, Reverend Clinton Miller was in court waiting on me to show up in court. They've been speaking on my behalf of being a stand-up citizen within the community. They stopped me from even going to court.
Are you trying to bring a charge against specific people who were violating the system that's set up and agreed to by the way we operate things, or is it a systemic...
No. What's happened is the statute of limitations... I'm sorry. The statute of limitations ran out.
Let him have a chance to say a word.
Okay, please. I'm dealing with me. Okay. The bottom line is that the statute of limitations ran out. And by the statute of limitations running out, this is what they do. They hold you, they beat you, they make sure that by the time you get out of whatever you got to do to fight these particular issues, the statute of limitations where you cannot bring a case against them.
One big quick thing, they beat you. You mean they come in, you're in your cell, and they come in and hit you with fists or with sticks?
But whatever they feel as though it's convenient, they would do.
You say
whatever is convenient, they would use their fists, they would use sticks or whatever.
There's no supervision. The law or the understanding of the way people are incarcerated and so forth.
It all stems from the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment says no cruel and unusual punishment.
Okay, thank you. It sounds cruel and unusual.
Yeah, it's cruel and unusual. It shouldn't be.
And intimidation.
That's what it is. Yeah. That's what it is.
When you bring these lawsuits, you name the correction officers who did the beatings, if you can find out their names. But what we try to do, which mostly unsuccessfully, but one time successfully, is try to hold the supervisory personnel responsible for not supervising properly.
Yeah, right.
And you know, we were able. In one case, we were able to do it.
That's the one where you got the big settlement. Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's a rare event. Most of the time, the Attorney General's office will move to dismiss the case on various technical grounds. Judges are sympathetic to that. They look, you have to keep order in prisons. We're not going to let every prisoner bring a case.
Right.
It's a very rare event. Those are very hard cases to win.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I'm here today. That experience was a lot of banging my head against the wall.
Right.
You know, people should be aware that prisons are run in our name. Those prisons are run in the name of the people of the state of New York.
Thank you.
That's our tax dollars.
Absolutely.
And they're not being spent wisely.
Yeah, right.
Because people there, if you want my opinion how it should be worked, the state university should be involved in the administration of state prisons, and everybody who's in a prison should be given the opportunity to advance their education.
Excuse me, at one time it did exist at one time until George Pataki pulled it from the prison system. The bottom line is what you understand is that one of the biggest problems they have within the system itself, George Pataki set the platform for George W. Bush to do what he did for Guantanamo Bay, not giving people civil rights or constitutional rights to go to pursue their case. The bottom line is that what's happening is that what really bothers me more than anything in the world, George Pataki was sued many a times because what was happening, he was stopping people and violating their constitutional rights, especially when he was appointing judges. The same thing what George W. Bush did. What they were doing when they were appointing judges, if you did not follow my agenda, you would not be reappointed to the bench. There's been cases brought against George Pataki deal with those issues.
Okay, that's another issue. But there's an old saying, you know, and you must have taken it in and everything like that, is you cannot fight City Hall. You cannot fight the powers that be. You cannot speak power to the, you cannot speak to the power. You have to just go along with what it is your representatives do, and you got to go along with it. And if you don't, you're a troublemaker.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's the case.
That's an attitude.
Well, that's on the street. That's not just in the prison.
Okay.
If they're beating, let me say something real quick, Paul. Let me just say this real quick. If they are maiming and killing people on the street, what you think they're doing in the prison system? If they're shooting men down with the Giuliani administration and when Pataki was in office, if they were killing black men and telling you how you like those 42 bullets, if they were doing that on the streets in New York City, what you think they were doing upstate?
You can fight City Hall.
Yeah.
It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, it does. City Hall all the way up to the whole federal system and everything. The whole system is fighting the whole system.
If you can find a sympathetic judge, you can succeed.
Can you find
But as long as that judge is not appointed by a, you got to understand something, Paul, which I know you understand this. The city judges are appointed by the mayor of New York City. The governor appoints state judges and appellate court judges. And if he appoints those judges, those judges feel as though he's not. And the president of the United States appoints the federal judges as well as the U.S. Supreme Court. And if the bottom line is that if those judges are appointed by these particular three individuals we're talking about, you cannot pursue your issues within that court or within the state, especially if they are the next level to your proceedings of law.
Let's give the counselor a chance to talk a little. He's got a lot of good information. We've been talking a lot, but maybe you could fill us in
this
a
is
little bit.
what I hope.
And why are some judges elected and some are not? And what does it mean? And is there anything citizens can do to try to bring a better system to our judicial process?
Very, very interesting. Federal judges are appointed by the president.
That's right.
And confirmed by the Senate, and they're appointed for life.
Let him talk.
Okay. The state judges at the felony level, in the city we call them state Supreme Court justices, in the rest of the state they're county court judges, they are elected. The appellate division is chosen from among the judges who are already elected, appointed by the governor. The Court of Appeals used to be elected, and now it's appointed by the governor from a list. There's a commission involved. So it's kind of a mixed system. The civil court of the city of New York is elected. The criminal court of the city of New York is appointed by the mayor. So it's mixed. Some judges are elected, some are appointed. But the most important point I want to make is I hope anyway, viewers will change their perceptions of who is a prisoner.
Okay.
Who is a prisoner is our children. That's
Exactly.
a prisoner. The average prisoner is a young man, 18 to 25 years old, who got a little messed up in high school.
Right.
Maybe didn't finish high school, maybe got in a fight with the dean or the principal or another student, maybe didn't finish high school, gone on the street, maybe dealt some drugs, maybe did a robbery or a burglary. It's a young man who didn't grow up properly.
And a huge proportion of them are black and brown.
And that's all
over the country.
That's 90% of the prisoners.
Now
listen, those guys are all getting out. They all got 3 to 9, 4 to 12, 5 to 15. They're getting out. Now,
and then what?
Well, that's the thing. If you have a system where all these young men who are the sons of our older citizens, that's who it is, are going to be beat up, messed up, have their heads played with. What's going to happen when they get out?
Wait a minute. Oh, within the prison system, they're being beaten up. And they are, and that is there all the
An intelligent prison system, if there ever was any intelligence in state government, which I doubt, but if there ever was, there would be a realization that these are fellows who had problems in high school. Well, we're going to have to replicate high school. We're going to have to replicate community college.
Let's represent Phillips Andover.
Well, the point is,
a good prep school or something.
If people are going to get out of prison, and you're not locking up everybody for the rest of their lives, well, then you have to prepare them for the rest of their lives so they won't get arrested again. Isn't that in everybody's interest? I don't know why no one's figured that out.
Well, the prison thing is to give a sort of vengeance and a kind of authoritarian kind of crack of the whip.
What we say in the
law rather than rehabilitation.
Vengeance is an improper motive. Law is not about vengeance. That was the system before we had the legal system. That's where people ran around and poked at each other with spears when they weren't happy. That's vengeance. We don't do vengeance. We try to do justice.
Well, all right, we try to do justice, but a lot of it has to do with vengeance and with getting old scores and that sort of thing.
That's the problem.
The political process.
I don't think
we don't have a system.
I don't think there's any judge or district attorney who would say they're in the vengeance business.
Well, they wouldn't say.
No, they wouldn't.
I was thinking among the population in general, and the thing of what can be politically happen, and they're just going to protect. They're going to protect the good, solid citizens who listen to Lawrence Welk or whatever, and from the people that are the troublemakers in our society, who just happen to be very often of a brown and black.
What I hope the viewers will understand.
It's racism in a very
prisoners are the sons of the good, solid citizens. That's who prisoners are.
Okay.
Sometimes daughters, but a rare event. Mostly sons.
It's a thing of the men,
yeah.
Like that.
And that once people figured that out, the whole thing would change. Prisoners are not some alien species. It's not like that.
It's growing tremendously. What have we got, 2.5 million now in the prisons in the United States of America? And it's a growth industry. A lot of people making money on that, jobs and other kind of things. And, you know, and they've got this vision of that kind of thing. And the stories like he's telling do not get out into the film fare much or less, because the prisoners are seen to be hardened people who are beyond the pale and have to be dealt with very harshly in order to protect the solid citizens. That's the normal story.
That is a tiny number. There are a certain number of people who are hopelessly violent. I'm not talking about that group. I'm talking about the vast majority of prisoners who are young men who screwed up. That's very different than a person who is, you know, got violent tendencies and is never going to be right.
Okay, and if you're if you're thinking about societal changes, and some people are talking about things ought to change, it's always been that if you've got people who are compliant, will go along with what the man says. They used to have Fugitive Slave Act when they had the slave, and you had to turn the slave back.
And that's all. Excuse me. That's all the prison system is a slave master's plantation.
I think you use that thing.
Excuse me. It's all just all the slave. That's all the prison system is, a slave master's plantation. White folks commit crime just like black folks commit crime. The reason why you made a statement about people of color. The bottom line is that white folks do the same crime that black folks do and get less of time. How the hell you gonna come along and a woman, these people, these white women gonna come along and molest a child, a little boy, and then they're going to make an argument in court that she was too pretty to go to jail. You let a black man or a black woman or somebody like that commit a crime, that same crime that white woman committed, they would have her the next thing smoking through the electric chair. The bottom line is that the laws have to change. It's just like the Rockefeller bill when Governor... The Rockefeller bill. The Rockefeller bill dealing with how David Paterson, the governor, had to change the Rockefeller bill. The white folks walk around with a kilo of cocaine, and a black guy walk around with a little grain of crack cocaine. They give him 25 to life. The person that has the kilo of cocaine should have got the 25 to life. That's what happens within the system itself. Black folks, one of the biggest things that I love about Bruce Wright, I don't like that term called. I don't like the term called cutting loose Bruce. That's what white folks named him. Okay, I call him Bruce Wright, Judge Bruce Wright. Okay, white folks named him Cut Him Loose Bruce. That was a way of them intimidating him. But that book he wrote called Black Roll, White Justice. That book is being taught in all the Ivy schools because what he dealt with the direction of the law. It's not anybody's job, especially being a judge or a lawyer, to deal with. I mean, their job is to interpret the law. Their opinion does not matter. But what happens is that in the system itself, you have these people forming their opinions, and that's why you have the system or the dictionary system in the condition it is in today. The problem we have to understand is that we have to stop running around here thinking that every black man you see or every black woman you see or every Spanish person you see is a statistic of going to jail. The bottom line is that what happens is that society itself has dealt with a stereotype of black folks and people of color, which I consider myself black, that they have a tendency to say, we're all violent, we're all irrational. But the bottom line is that what we have shown white America at this point is by electing a black president that we are intelligent enough to be able to carry that torch of who we are as a people. And that's one of the things that we have to understand as a people, understand as being a proud black man. I was born as a proud black man. I was not brought to America or born in America to become a prisoner or to become anybody's beaten stick. And my thing is that what bothers me more than anything in the world, no one would listen to me. No one would give me the chance to speak about what happened to me and how they tried to destroy and still trying to destroy my life. And that's why I'm working so hard and doing the things I do, producing shows. It's not about me. It's about individuals like Mr. Kerson is talking about. These things have to be brought forward. I'm not the only one sitting here discussing this type of abuse that goes on within the system. This goes on constantly within the prisons throughout the country.
It happens within the prison, and it happens in a lesser degree in the society in general. And it's a holdover from racism, which was just absolutely out and out chattel.
And I apologize.
James Joyce's History is a Nightmare, from which I'm attempting to awaken. Are things getting any better through time, or where do we stand? It used to be worse.
Well, excuse me, Dr. Gates was just arrested as.
That's right.
Excuse me, can I finish, please? Dr. Gates. Okay, I really wish that people sometimes would listen. Dr. Gates yesterday was arrested going into his own house.
It was a couple.
Okay, the bottom line is that what kills me about the whole conversation about that. And like Barack Obama said, not saying that Barack Obama's word is God, but like Barack Obama said, that also said, if you've already been informed that you already live in the house, why would they have to arrest you? Naturally, I would be upset if somebody came to my house and throwing me out my house too. So naturally, the man maybe was upset. We wasn't all there, so we don't understand the situation. But he still was arrested and released. Yeah. This goes on in the black community.
This was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is probably the most progressive town in the whole country.
Right.
So what's going on in the rest of the country?
Exactly.
It's in the society and it's in the historical order. That's the thing. That's what I was trying to get at a larger picture. It used to be worse. Slavery, chattel slavery.
But how do you shoot a man 42 times with pulling out a wallet?
All right, it's bad. It's bad. We know it's really bad.
But I'm glad I had
to getting better.
Excuse me, it's not getting better.
It's not getting better.
Excuse me.
So.
Listen, white supremacy, right now down in Texas. Down in Texas right now, there's a case where you have the Black Panther Party and you also have the black Muslims down there fighting because last time they had King that was dragged by a chain in the back of a truck. Now they got a case like it happened 2 weeks ago where the guy was actually drugged on the back of it, ran over and drugged 70 feet. And the two white people that were driving the truck or driving the car was never prosecuted. So now the black people down in that little town down in Texas is upset because these white folks have not been prosecuted. You let a black man go down there and run over a white man, and you see what happens. They would put him under the jail, and most likely they would mostly give him the death penalty when he didn't even commit a crime. Mm-hmm. So the thing is that what you have to understand, there's two phases of the law. There's white law and there's Negro law.
Mm. Well, okay, you made the point, yeah.
Okay. I'm not a black person, so I can't.
You can understand. And I apologize for my rudeness.
Wait a minute. Let me get a word. I can't get a word in edgewise with Carl.
Let me tell you.
Like a Gatling.
Well, because I have an issue here.
Because you got a real issue.
I got a real issue here. You're battling. We're talking about what you're saying. I'm trying to get you very clear.
I got a chance to get a word.
I'm trying to make that point clear.
I do have.
I'm not upset. Would you be upset? If someone was beating on you, would you be upset? Excuse me. If somebody was beating on you for 6 years, how would you feel?
I never had anybody.
Okay, so DeBarma, you don't understand being black, and you don't understand. You don't understand.
That's the point.
Well, let me make the point of being a black man and deal with my venom of how I feel. Let a black man have a chance to speak about something that's real, that's happening, about being real. It's just like the joke we were talking about of dealing with a white guy staying waiting for a taxi, a black guy staying for a taxi. The taxi rolls past the black guy, but as soon as the white guy steps out, the taxi stops.
It does it all the time.
Let me say one thing about this.
Paul, and then I want to make a point also from my position. I can't understand how hard it is to be me.
I can't understand.
Well, that should be really interesting.
Yeah. Can't understand what it is to be a black person. However, I spent 19 years sitting in a cell with people who were arrested because when you get appointed to represent somebody, you sit in a cell with them to plan the defense. You get locked in for an hour or so, and then you plan the defense. Anyway, a lot of these people. A lot were black and Hispanic men. So I've developed actually a set of advice to give people.
Okay.
If any viewers are out there, are young black or Hispanic men 18 to 25, I do have some advice for how to avoid this kind of racism. And you may not like this advice, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. First advice is wear a tie.
Right, a tie. Well, he's done it.
Yes,
I wear ties all the time.
Secondly, carry a math book.
A math book.
And a Bible.
Good. And a Bible. Good.
Now, a young black man wearing a tie, carrying a math book, and carrying a Bible is probably less likely to be arrested than a young black man who's got his pants down and his hat on backwards.
Right.
So don't wear your hat backwards. Don't have your pants down.
Yeah, but this is fashion and the style, and it's a way of protesting against the system that's so unjust. It's got to be unjust, and we can't be just getting into
it's not so simple, you'll pardon my expression, as black and white. There's cultural distinctions in here.
Right.
And if the police officer, who's got to make a snap decision, sees various cultural icons that will cause him to make a different decision, that can overcome the inherent racism in that situation. That is, a police officer, black or white, approaching several young people standing on a street corner at night, immediately thinks they're up to no good. They may not be up to no good. They may be trading baseball cards. You know, they may be not up to no good. Right. But the police officer doesn't think that. He doesn't think that. He thinks they're up to no good. Now, if the guy standing there on the corner is wearing a tie, has a Bible and a math book, and looks like he's about to go to study hall.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and it's not 4 o'clock in the morning. He should not be out at 4 o'clock in the morning. If it's noon, he's not going to get arrested, or at least he's going to get the benefit of the doubt. So that's the advice I give to people, to avoid getting arrested to begin with, if you can, which you can't always.
Well, that's like assimilate and be part of the thing and get into the thing, and rather than asserting your own identity. What if you want to have a big Malcolm X or something?
Prison
is have some justice and
let me. I hope I'm speaking to the audience. Prison is a horrible place, and you should take steps to avoid it.
Prison used to be worse than it is now. I think back in the days of Dickens. I think they had debtors' court. That's the point I was making. It's always been history is a nightmare of unjust.
The point is, if you can conduct yourself in a way to avoid prison, which is, you know, doesn't take that much out of you, well, you should do it.
Okay.
Because a person getting in prison, particularly a black person or a Hispanic person getting in prison, this is not good. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah, and it's also going to hurt your chances for getting anything going.
Yes, it's going to hurt your whole life. You're going to have a hard time getting a job afterwards.
So what you ought to do is keep your nose to the grindstone and be a good citizen and everything like that.
Well, everybody, you know, most people are good citizens. The problem is the cultural norms that a police officer has in the street at night. So you have to conduct yourself accordingly.
Well, it's very hard to know how it is to do that and everything. I mean, it's a terrible situation, it seems to me, and if you're on the side of that, I was trying to get a word in because I don't know. I don't mean to pry, Paul, or anything, but Kerson are you by any chance Jewish?
Well, I don't know if I want to talk about that on the air, but yes.
Okay, now you've got some claim because there's been a great deal of unjust things dedicated against the Jewish population, and certainly you have a claim. You come from a thing where the people were slaves, for crying out loud. They were brought here. And you're concerned with the social justice and trying to bring around its good social order and get the system in place and everything. Imagine me. I have a hell of a time. I'm a white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, intellectual, heterosexual, of royal British descent. So I have absolutely nothing to claim except the fact that I am of the enemy group, right?
No.
So, I mean, it is the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant people who built these systems that are so unjust, that have been so unjust to all these orders, that, you know, it's really hard.
I wouldn't say that.
How would you like to be in a position like that? How would you like to be in a position like that? Just a moment.
You have a lot to be proud of.
You have nothing. You can't claim any ethnic identity or all. You're the problem.
You're from the group that
How would you like to be the problem, Paul?
You're part of the group that wrote the Bill of Rights to begin with.
Well, that's true.
Okay?
Yeah,
it's up to the rest of us to enforce it.
Yeah. I'm making a joke in a way like that. Okay. I never have been in a fight in all my life, so it never was. I never did. I never had a fist fight. I watch those movies where they fight, you know, like John Wayne, and they'll hit each other and everything. I think it's just an awful kind of thing to contemplate, and how the hell people try to solve things that way. I asked you a serious question. Do you think it's getting better?
No.
You do not. Do you think the trend, what do you think, Paul? The trend, are we getting toward where we can maybe have something of elemental justice? We got an unjust economic system. We got a thing where it's all owned by a small group of people, the assets and so forth. We don't have a system that the future requires. Africa's starting to stir. We just did a program with the president of Senegal last week, a genuine world-class intellectual, and they're beginning to get a unity of the countries of Africa, 54 countries. They're beginning to move. They're moving and trying to bring some
Africa,
sort of movement of justice.
I understand what you're saying about Africa.
Is there any hope for the future?
Can we stay here in America? The bottom line is that what's going on is this. One of the things you have to understand, when Pataki built all those prisons upstate, he had to fill those prisons with someone. And based by building those prisons upstate, those prisons still exist.
Yeah, they're growing.
Well, they still exist.
It's a growth industry.
So the bottom line is that it's becoming a privatized industry.
Yes,
it became a Wall Street industry.
Yes.
So the bottom line is that that's the new plantation for black men.
Thank you.
So the bottom line is that what we have to understand is that before George Pataki became governor, Cuomo had a system where he had college prep programs in prisons.
Now that would be what he was suggesting.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that Paul has been trying to push for the last past 10, 15 years.
It's getting easier with the internet.
Well, the bottom line, maybe by having a different president, a different governor at this point, which we had wrote a letter to.
A different attitude.
Seriously, but one of the things me and Paul, that me and Paul did was write a letter to the governor. The governor wrote a letter back to Paul.
He did. He said he would think. I wrote to him almost everything that I told you. Governor Patterson. He wrote back, said, he would think about it. He would assign it to his appropriate assistants, and he would think about it.
Yeah.
But so far, that's it.
Yeah, but a societal change.
Well, the thing is that it's not a societal change, it's what they call a political change. The bottom line is what you understand is that when you start dealing with the Republican Party and Democratic Party, basically, it seems like the Republican Party is a lot more harsher on crime than the Democratic Party. It's not saying it's good or bad. I mean, which is dangerous sometimes.
Texas.
But the bottom line is that we read here of dealing with the platform of what George W. Bush did in Texas was a disgrace as well.
Yeah.
He killed more prisoners in Texas than any state within the Union.
Yeah.
The governor there in Texas today has superseded George W. Bush's death policies in Texas. So the bottom line is that one of the things we have to understand is that we have to start dealing with addressing issues and getting mentors to youth, especially black youth. Because one of the biggest problems we have in the community, you have babies raising babies. And you need, and one of the biggest problems we have is that if you don't have a man in your life or someone in your life to give you an example of what it is to be a man. I grew up in a family where I had mentors. My mother was a mentor, my father was a mentor. So my whole point is that, for me, I think it's one of the most wonderful things in the world that I was able to be raised and have some type of dignity within my life and respect for people within my life. And a lot of things, I see a lot of, especially when I see a lot of black youth and a lot of women, young women and things like that. These women need mentors and people that shows them what it is to be someone of elegance. Someone
we got a mentor in the White
House
House
teaching in the
school,
but what's being taught in the schools is basically what's being taught in the schools. If you're taught about yourself, you'll be more proud of yourself. A lot of times the kids are acting out in schools is because you're not teaching them something they're really interested in learning. They're medicating these kids. When I was growing up as a kid, they would send you to the principal's office, and the principal would ask you what's going on with you, blah, blah, blah. Today, what they do, they medicate you.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is that we have to understand a different method of dealing with addressing the educational system itself of how we deal with youth. How you deal with individuals, giving them a job, giving them a skill, motivating them to want to do something in their life. You're not giving that and going to the black community or the Hispanic community to do that, they will not grow.
Yeah, well, we've got a system that we've got in place. We've been here 200,000 years, the Homo sapien, and we're here. We've got weapon systems that are species lethal now, finally, after all this time. As recently as the Second World War was not the case. It's a new existential reality. The future needs something other than all the institutions we've inherited out of history. We reify the institutions out of history. We're condemned to repeat the mistakes of history because we don't have vision of a qualitative transformation of the human order. I think it's a thing that goes across the board that we do not have a system in place that the future requires for the liberation of the human society. We have the opportunity we have the capability for it. But we don't have the institutional structures and the historical institutions. We reify outdated institutions because we're used to doing that.
Well, so
we got a big challenge in front of all of us, and it's a big, huge challenge to be alive at a time when that is such the existential situation we're in, and we don't have the leadership required. I love the idea you were talking, Paul, about. I think it costs more to send somebody to prison than it does to send them to Harvard. Now, what the hell is that? If we don't have some sort of a thing where there can be an educational context within which they go,
if I were the governor,
why the hell don't we just?
I'll tell you right now.
You understand what I'm saying?
If I were the governor, I would, by executive order, merge the State University and the State Department of Correctional Services.
I think that's.
And I would require. That every prisoner be in school all day long, so they would not have the opportunity to be beaten up by correctional officers or each other.
I'm different than that. When I was a professor, I was terrible. I was anti. When I was in, humor. When I was in the Army and they had the sergeants, I used to try and explain to them that we could do things democratically, and they didn't want to listen. They wanted you to get in line. And there's an authoritarianism that undergirds all of our institutions. And when I was a professor at the university, I used to get rid of any authority I had over the students that would come into the class by giving everybody an A on the first day. Giving grades in a university is like giving wages in a system. The giving wages in a system is outdated. It's an authoritarian thing, a wage slavery system we're projecting. What you got to do is have an environment that's so interesting that people will go of their own volition and not cut out their idea that they have a legitimate thing without fitting into an authoritarian slot that we're trying to, in a behavioral psychology way, condition everybody to. So you don't require them to go. You make an environment where it's so damned interesting and so exciting and so interesting that they go by their own volition. That's a way toward getting people engaged, in my mind.
We have economic problems. We
have a huge, we need a new economic system other than what's being proposed by anybody now, and it's coming soon, I think. We're getting to the point where we can
our greatest economic resource is our own human minds. And when you think of the number of minds, the waste of human resources in a prison that could be developed.
Absolutely.
You don't know if one fellow in prison may have some new idea that's going to be the next computer or the next telephone or the next who knows what.
A lot of those
that idea is beaten out of them.
That's right. Those attitudes. There's the thing. The artistic class is very akin to the criminal class because, you know, they're thinking outside the box. They're thinking of new ideas. People that are also people that have some gumption to stand up against and speak truth to power and that sort of thing are the kind of people we really need, and people that are thinking that way.
And the point is, the way it is now, when you get out of prison, you are so depressed, you are so beaten down that if you had a good idea like that, you're never going to develop it.
Yeah.
That's a waste. That's a huge waste.
Yeah.
Well, you know, but
I would say it applies to society in general. You go to corporate cubicle capital, you know, corporate capital, you know, cubicle capitalism is like a kind of assembly line of drudgery for most people. Most of the things people are told to do in order to have bread to eat are not really able to draw upon their real potentiality. Yeah. We got to see a liberated order for everybody in a way that has to be part of the dawning era now. And these kind of things that he went through and the things you're talking about have to be part of that thing. And it seems to me we've got an opportunity to do that, and you gentlemen are pursuing it, and I thank you very much for all your work.
But you know, but one of the things you have to understand is
we only got 2 minutes left.
One of the things you have to understand is this. The most dangerous thing in this country is an educated black man. So they're not looking to educate black men in this country. The bottom line is that they were looking to do that. They would have been doing that a long time ago. But the bottom line is what I've done and going to school and studying and being able to do the things I've done, it's like dealing with what I produce is my TV shows, Black Women in Politics, Conversation with Harold Chandler, Black Media, Black Stereotypes, Why Does White Folks Write Black Books? But one of the greatest things I wanted to say also is the letter, which I wanted to show
I know the letter. Show the letter, brother. Here it is. This is from no other than
Charles Rangel.
Charles Rangel
dealing with behind
the bench. It is a letter from
bench.
Charles Rangel and congratulating Mr. Ricks on all of his good work, and I think that's very good that you got that in your corner. I would like to give a shout out to the fact of this gentleman from Senegal that we just aired yesterday in this New York City, and he's a major factor, again, not only because he's the president, again, I repeat, he's the president of a major country that's anchoring the idea that is growing about the United States of Africa, getting an entity like the European Union or the United States of America. They're getting together. Over half the presidents were there up in Libya with Muammar Gaddafi. He's with that. And he is a world-class intellectual as well as a political leader. So it is that you don't have to say they don't want to educate. You can educate yourself, and people can educate themselves, and we can do that now. So I think I like to see things positive, and I do think things are getting better. The opportunity, at the level of opportunity, it's a major era of transformation that we live in now. You gentlemen are helping, as I say, and I hope we can pull it off. It's a major challenge, systemic to the whole way in which the planet operates. We need a new liberating order. You're working toward that, it seems to me. Congratulations on the letter from Mr. Rangel.
Thanks
for coming in, Paul.
Thanks very much. Cornelius, thank you.
My brother. Thank you.
We're still on the air, so you can't yet go. We're just going to run the credits now.
Real quick, it's something that, giving back to the community itself, and that's why I feel it's so important to create the programs I've created.
Yeah.
And it's going to get better. I think we're working on another program also. I'm working with Paul, which we're going to be doing another program called Behind the Bench.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important because it was such a great success.
Yeah.
So I thought it was important that we run another program to actually make it to get more involved in the community itself.
Do it.
So I think
Did you get it taped? Did you get it taped?
Yes, we did. We got a
video. You should get it on tape. And Paul, you should get over here and get a show going over here. This is a good
I'll think about it.
Because you're a really good guy and the thing you're doing is really good. Thanks a lot for all that good work.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us on the show.
Thank you, the audience, for viewing. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. That's it for now. Happy to bring you these two good gentlemen. And